Hey, I'm Alex, and I am obsessed with Homelabbing. I have been doing TikTok videos more recently on the random Homelabbing stuff that I'm doing, and I figured with how well those were received and how many questions I got that I'll just go through a bunch and see how people like it. I haven't done YouTube in like 6 years, so this will be the first time I'm doing it in a while. But yeah, I'm just gonna have some fun with this. Um, so I guess we'll kick it off with the homepage that I use, which is Glance. I've used Homer and I've used Get Homepage. I eventually just recently moved to Glance. I just like the aesthetic more, and it's at least in my opinion a little less barrier to entry. The widgets are super easy to configure. The layout is super easy to understand, and it's laid out pretty well in their documentation. And it's also super customizable and extensible. Like the widgets you can see on the right side there are two of them are custom wrote, and I have a lot more custom wrote on the second page, which I'll get into in a second. But you can see I have the uptime of my server up here. Ignore how it's been a month. It's been 2 months. I should probably restart soon. This is a monitor for all of my services that I run, so it'll tell me if one's down or if one's not responding. And then again, on the right side here, I just have some random widgets. So this is hooked up directly to my Pi-hole setup, which shows like how many queries were blocked or what percentage and stuff like that. And I can see all the blocked or top blocked domains here. Recently watched is the custom wrote widget that I wrote. I have my own TV tracker that I wrote, and it just shows all the content that I've been watching on Plex. So it's just relayed to a widget in the homepage. And then this is one I actually just wrote last night, which is a currently playing, and it pulls whatever song I'm currently playing from Last FM and relays it into the homepage. You can have multiple pages, so I have a second page purely for football. This kind of shows off more of Glance's power with custom APIs and stuff like that. The top widget especially, this is a fantasy leaderboard of my team. So Bay Harbor Pistons, Dexter, Peak. All of this data is pulled from Sleeper, and then in Glance's configuration, you can write HTML templates with CSS and show it all in Glance, which is super neat. And the rest of these components, I have the Buffalo Bills and NFL subreddit. Go Bills. It shows the most recent posts here. I can show more, see all the newer posts. Same with videos. I can see all the newest videos from the NFL and Buffalo Bills channels on YouTube. And then on the right side here, I have a weather widget for Orchard Park, which is where Highmark is. And then a custom Bills score widget that just shows their latest game and the points and who won. And then an RSS feed that just shows a few different blogs like Banged Up Bills, Buffalo Rumblings, Two Bills Drive, stuff like that. And there's actually only two custom written widgets here, this one and this one. The rest are stuff that's just natively in Glance and is super easy to configure. And that's partly why I think it's super neat, because it's super easy to configure these widgets while also having the possibility of extending it past whatever those widgets do, which is super neat. So we can kind of start going through these services one by one. I'll start with Plex, which a lot of people might already be familiar with because it's a little more than just a locally hosted Netflix, but I use it as a locally hosted Netflix for all of my legally sourced material. I can come in here and go to movies, watch any of the movies that I have, go to TV shows and do the same. And again, this is tied to the content tracker that I wrote, so I'll start watching here, and because I have a Plex Pass, I can use webhooks, and I wrote a custom webhook to receive that and send all that data to my tracker, which then is shown on the tracker. And I also have a HD home run set up so I can get local programming from affiliate channels or TV stations around my area and watch them through Plex. Jellyfin is kind of the self-hosted alternative to Plex. I can't really show it right now because the server is having some issues, but it's a more privacy-focused, self-hosted version, community-built version of Plex. It's definitely a great alternative. You do kind of lose some features, not much if you don't care about some things, but there's definitely a difference, so I recommend doing research into what's best for you and your use case. But you will hear a lot of people say that Jellyfin is much better offline. Plex kind of sucks in that regard. Even if you have a Plex Pass, it sucks. So Jellyfin is the better alternative if you're doing a lot of offline watching, or if you are the only one viewing your media. It comes down to preference and what you want to use and what you feel the best using. Patoli is a kind of analytical front end for Plex. You can just come in here and get a bunch of metrics about your Plex server, like what you've been watching, what shows are most popular on your server, the most active users, the most active clients, most active or concurrent streams, stuff like that. And I haven't used this a lot. I think there's plugins as well for like notifications and stuff like that. But I just have it here to see metrics and play with it in the future if I want to. Image is a image backup solution, self-hosted, kind of an alternative to Google Photos or iCloud. There's a mobile app that you can download on iOS or Android, and that will allow you to back up specific albums or specific photos from your phone and put them onto your server instead of Google Drive or something like that if you so prefer. So you can see I have my Zach Top concert here, all of the videos that I took, and yeah, it's super easy to back up. Pi-hole is a DNS server that you can set any of your devices to run all traffic through, and it will block any ads or any tracking from happening, basically. So if I come into the query log here, you can see my phone recently sent some requests to Apple, and some of them were allowed through, but some of them ended up on the block list, either for tracking purposes or analytical purposes, and were blocked from going through. Obviously, this comes with the risk of like sites getting blocked and broken, and like some host fails to resolve and the entire site breaks. I haven't personally had issues with that, but worst case scenario, if you do have issues with that, you can come in here and go to domains and add a whitelist for a domain, whether it's a wildcard or a specific subdomain. But again, I haven't really had issues with that. The only 2 domains I have whitelisted here are for work, so I don't know where that comes from. But if you do have issues with it, you can always whitelist domains here, and it works fine. Vault Warden is a Bitwarden compatible unofficial client for, just password manager. I actually don't use this as my daily driver. I use 1Password since I get it through work, but I back up my 1Password vaults to this server. So worst case scenario, I can't use 1Password anymore. If I lose my plan or something like that, I can just move everything here. This is Dazzle. I don't use Portainer or anything like that. I used to, but I eventually dropped it in favor of managing stuff more myself. So this is just a super lightweight front end for viewing logs for Docker containers. So if I look at something like Kavita, I can come in here and just look at logs, what it's doing, any errors that I need to resolve, or just find things to fix. Code server. Initially, I wasn't too sure about deploying this. I didn't have much of a reason to, but I realized as I was editing configurations for some of the containers that I run, it would be a hell of a lot easier to do this outside of the terminal. So I set it up and have it configured to mount my Docker folder that all my containers are stored in to this container, and I can come here and just modify configurations for all of my containers super easily. This is the glance configuration for glance that I showed earlier. You can see all of the monitors here, and if I change something like Plex bad, you can see here, if I refresh, it comes up. So it makes editing configurations and editing containers super, super easy, and it's so nice. Homebridge is a HomeKit bridge for any devices that don't natively support HomeKit. I have a bunch of Gobi lights both in my office and in my room, so I set them up here so I can use HomeKit on my phone or on my TV for turning on or off any of my lights. So if I turn off my office light here, you can see it turns off, and if I turn it on, it turns on. You can see the logs there. There are a bunch more plugins as well. All of them are community sourced, so you can look at your IoT devices or any of your lights or stuff like that and see if they have a plugin and set them up here, and then use Siri to manage them. Excalidraw, it's a whiteboard. That's that. Dashdot is a super at a glance metrics app. It shows super high level metrics like processor load, storage, memory load, network incoming and outgoing traffic. It's super nice to just come in here and see how my machine's doing. You can see network, or not network, memory is a little bit pinned. I gotta figure that out. But it's super nice to just come in here and see everything at a glance without having to understand how to read a lot of these things. I actually don't have this set up fully yet, but ROM is a super neat project. You can throw any game ROMs from retro platforms like the SNES or Atari games, throw them in here, and you can run them directly from your browser because of a project called Emulator.js. So I don't have it set up again, but you can throw ROMs in here, play them from your browser, and it is super neat. This is NTFY. It is a push notification solution, which allows you to send different push notifications to devices that you have. They have an iOS app and an Android app, so you can send notifications to your phone, which is super nice. I use it for the content tracker that I have, and you can use it for uptime and stuff like that. So super nice for getting notifications super quickly. Cup is super simple. It's just a way to see what Docker images that are downloaded or pulled and need updating. So I had some major updates here for Postgres that I just resolved, and I have a bunch of containers that I need to pull the latest of here and verify that they work. So it's just a super nice way to see at a glance what needs updating, and if you click on it, it gives you the command that you need to run, the digests, and it's super neat. Pocket ID is a super neat project. I use it in cooperation with TinyAuth. It's basically an OIDC provider and allows you to use FIDO keys like a YubiKey or something like that and log in with them. So I have Pocket ID set as a OAuth provider here, and I can just click here and it will redirect me to Pocket ID, and then I can sign in here with the security key. I actually can't plug it in because my headphones are plugged in, but I can use my key and I can log into any of the services that are gated behind TinyAuth. Git, this is kind of like a lightweight locally hosted GitHub. You can also use GitLab, but I've found that that's a lot heavier. So Git is perfect for what I use it for, and this is actually public, so you can just go to this and look at my Homelab setup that I covered or will cover in another video. Again, super nice, super easy way to self-host projects that I run locally on my machines, and overall easy setup. I love it. Drop is a pretty cool project. This is super new, and it allows you to take any DRM free games that you have from GOG or something like that and throw them into one place on your server where you can download them on any clients that you want to run them on. You can see here I have Fallout 3 and Firewatch, and there's a few other games in there that I haven't added yet, but they have a desktop client that you can go in and download these games. My Nextcloud instance is actually offline right now, but essentially it's just a self-hosted Google Drive. You can throw documents and stuff on there, and it just works. I have the Windows client set up to automatically sync files that I throw into it, so everything is automatically uploaded to Nextcloud. And last but not least is Trafic. This is the reverse proxy that I use that everything has to go through in order to reach a service. And I use the Docker provider, which is also really nice because of how I have things set up. I can super easily route to a service with minimal effort. I just have to throw some Docker labels onto a Docker container in my compose config, and it works great. And these all have SSL certificates through Let's Encrypt. Because I have a domain that I have specifically for Homelabbing, I can just issue certificates to the domains using the DNS challenge for the Cloudflare DNS challenge that Trafic offers. So you can see this domain is signed. I can use HTTPS on it, and it's great for bypassing that annoying, oh, this connection is insecure error and warning. And it makes things a lot easier to manage because a lot of features will be lost if you are only on a HTTP connection. There's 4 more services down here. I won't go too into depth with them because they're too cool, and I'm not entirely sure how much I can talk about them. But just rest assured that I get all my media very, very ethically. So that is pretty much all of the services that I run. I'm not sponsored or anything by these guys, but self-host is a really great place to find stuff to host. Sometimes I'll come in here and just scroll and find stuff that I want to host. This is how I found Drop, and this is how I found ROM and stuff like that. So it's super nice. But that is essentially that. Again, if there's anything I can go more specifically into or that people would be interested in, I'm happy to do so. Just let me know in the comments. And yeah, have a good day.